Okay, thank you everyone for being there in person. Brigadier Mason and myself are joining by Zoom, and whoever else is logged on for the live stream, we appreciate you being part of our June 25th board meeting. This is the end of our fiscal year. The very first thing is a very exciting thing for the Board of Governors. We'd like to introduce Hannah Berry as the new student governor, just appointed by Governor Parson. And Hannah, do you have anybody with you?
I have people with me in heart. They were not able to attend today.
Okay. So, and I believe Judge Kellogg is there?
Yes.
Yes, to administer the oath of office for Hannah. Judge Kellogg, do you have a minute that maybe Hannah can just kind of tell us all a little bit about herself?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Well, my name is Hannah Berry. I am a junior at MWSU and I'm studying economics, a pre-law student. I've been involved with student government and the economics group at Missouri Western. Really found my home in the social sciences department and enjoy the different ideas and learning from peers from everywhere as opposed to, Liberty High School. So I really love MWSU and proud to be a Griffin and excited to serve my peers and this board in this new role.
No, thank you. We're very glad to have you. You're the first female student governor that I've served with, I think in 10 or 11 years. So welcome. And Judge Kellogg, if you would do the honors, we really appreciate you spending your time to come do this for us.
My pleasure, Debbie. Thank you. Raise your right hand. I, Hannah Berry.
I, Hannah Berry.
Do solemnly swear.
Do solemnly swear.
That I will support the Constitution of the United States.
That I will support the Constitution of the United States.
And the Constitution of the State of Missouri.
And the Constitution of the State of Missouri.
And I will faithfully demean myself.
And I will faithfully demean myself.
As a student member of the Board of Governors.
As a student member of the Board of Governors.
Of Missouri Western State University.
Of Missouri Western State University.
To the best of my ability.
To the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And Judge Kellogg, you'll sign the oath before you leave.
We're going to do that right now.
Okay, thank you so much. Hannah's already proven that, she's asked some pretty awesome questions in the finance committee. So I know she's going to be a great addition to this board. And, our focus is on the students in the first place. So we really appreciate and pay attention to our student governors when they have something to say. So the very first item we have on the agenda is need a motion to approve the minutes of the April 29th, 2020 board meeting. If somebody would like to make a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
And there's a second. Any questions, comments? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. The next item on the agenda is to motion to approve the minutes of the May 28th, 2020 special board meeting. Would need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Lee. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. I think that was Rick.
Yes.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. The next, we have the division reports, and they're all in the board book for anybody who would like to read along, or of course the board has had them and we've had opportunity to read all of them. All the division reports are in the book. So we're going to have a limited presentation of division reports today. I do want to ask, does anybody have any comments or questions on the reports that they've read, that they've had an opportunity to read prior to the board meeting? I just noticed a couple of things. You know, and I know Josh is going to get up later, but I noticed in the board book, the student athlete GPAs are outstanding. I know he mentioned we have some lacrosse commitments already. In student affairs, I was excited to see that the campus cupboard received a donation so they can buy a refrigerator and a freezer. And I know there's some esports construction going on at the moment. Also, appreciate communications and marketing team. I notice they're doing a lot of things online and staying close to our employees with the Griffin weekly e-newsletter. I know the marketing and IT department have been very, very busy, and we appreciate all their work. So those are just a few things that I picked up on. So first up is Dr. Doug Davenport in the room for academic and student affairs.
Thank you. And so I appreciate the opportunity just to speak briefly to the board to highlight a few things. Of course, in the written report, I noted several things that we're doing, continuing our response to the COVID-19 crisis. I would just want to publicly give a shout out to the Law Enforcement Academy, who in the midst of the crisis, at the request of the Commissioner of Higher Education of the state of Missouri, reconvened and concluded, I might add, their academy class. All 21 of the cadets that were eligible to take the Missouri Peace Officer exam took it and passed. 18 of those cadets have been placed by area agencies. So we're pleased that we play a part in serving our communities with the work of the academy on our campus. I do want to just highlight a couple of other things for you that are not in the board book, and one has to do with our fall plans, and I know President Wilson will speak to this in greater detail, but I appreciate that we are moving forward with plans for the fall. And from the academic side of the house, it is an extremely complicated endeavor to try to make the kinds of changes and accommodations that will be needed in order to have a smooth operation so that our students have a successful learning experience. And so some of the things that we're doing, one of them is very basic, but it has to do with the use of our learning management system. And we're expecting that all of our courses will use the Canvas learning management system to its fullest capacity, which will certainly make it easier for our students to have access to materials electronically. Student government had made that request, and that was a good one. So we are doing that. We are also asking that all of our classes have, where it's feasible, a hybrid format, or that they go fully online. And the reason for that is simple. If we need to pivot at some point during the semester, this gives us the ability to do so without the kind of disruption that we faced in the spring. I think we learned a lot from our experience in the spring, and it was largely successful, but it was very challenging, both to the students and the faculty. So taking precautions and doing some things to use technology as we move forward in a proactive way is important. One other thing that I think is important for us to do, and that is to be very flexible about our attendance policies, because if we have students who for whatever reason are either sick or have been exposed and need to stay for whatever reason, the goal is that we allow them, encourage them to participate fully in a distance education format instead of having to feel bad about not being able to come to classes, even if they are it is a regular face-to-face course. So those are some things. There'll be more to talk about. There's a lot going on with that, a lot of planning, a lot of good conversations there. Secondly, I want to update you with regard to our teach-out arrangements for our programs that are phased out. Those teach-out arrangements have been completed in terms of we've got the plans in place. We've contacted all the students. We have now some collaborative agreements with two partners, one being Missouri State University, and the other one being Park University. So that's wonderful that they are joining with us. We have a couple of institutions that are also going to partner with us, and so that is yet to come. But what this does is provide our students in need of a course that we are not able to offer for one reason or another, the ability to take that course. And we're very, very pleased to do that. I think that's really the future of higher education, that institutions will collaborate. Instead of being primarily competitive, we must collaborate. And these are examples of that kind of experience. I will say that as I dealt with the provosts for these institutions, they have been nothing but helpful. They have said, Doug, anything we can do, we want to serve your students because they're Missouri students. And so it is not to take our students, but to serve our students. And I appreciate that attitude. The other thing I want to briefly update you on is with the restructuring that has gone on with regard to student affairs. And so I've been very pleased to work with the Vice President and Dean of Students, Hannah Yaski. And we have been meeting weekly, and we meet for a long time each time because there is a lot going on with student affairs. And I appreciate her attitude or enthusiasm. They have a lot of positions that are vacant. So we've been trying to figure out how do we restructure, save money, and streamline our operations. That is no small task, but I appreciate the work that's been done by the entire division over there. And I'm glad to get better acquainted with them. It is a steep learning curve for me as a leader to try to understand all that goes on. And I've appreciated her willingness to help educate me in that regard. With that, I will be happy to answer any additional questions you might have.
Any questions from anybody? Thank you so much, Dr. Davenport, for all the work that you do, all the work that everybody does. That takes all of us to get where we need to go. Thank you. So the next report, we will hear from Dr. Josh Looney on athletics. And if you're looking at our board packet, that's on page 32, his report.
Thank you, Debbie. For the athletic perspective over the course of COVID-19, obviously we know it will be a disruptive year for higher education and has been, and athletics are no exception. And we've really been focusing most of our efforts or all of our efforts in two buckets, the financial piece and the health and safety piece. And on the financial side, if you followed athletics nationally across the country, you're seeing athletic programs shutter across the country, particularly at the Division I mid-major level is being hit especially hard. Scholarship commitments are high at those levels. Travel is by airplane and others. And at the Division II level, it's a little bit different. As we discussed, the reliance on the partial scholarship model, reliance on enrollment stability. So nationally, there's been a push to find significant cost reductions in the way the Division II model is executed with the best efforts to not shutter athletic programs or sports teams because of their return on investment to institutions. So nationally, the NCAA took some pretty significant steps about a month ago and announced a reduction in playing seasons across the board for Division II athletics. And what that means, instead of 30 regular season basketball games next year, we'll play 22. Instead of 11 football games, we'll play 10. Instead of 50 baseball games, we'll play 40. Very difficult decisions. Our athletes are here to compete. But what I'll tell you, myself, as well as the other 13 ADs in the MIAA, were in strong support for these reductions so we can still have a great return on investment for our institutions, but also give our athletes a great ability to compete. The savings for our institution will end up being north of six figures just off of those core expenses alone. Obviously, the majority is travel and game expense and operations. And so those are one-year national measures that were taken. On the local level, the MIAA has also made structural changes to regular season formats as well as championship accesses to our conference championships. It's actually a task force that I chaired, and Mackenzie O'Neill, one of our women's soccer student athletes who is going to be a senior, was our student athlete representative on that committee. And I wanted to give her a lot of props for her maturity through that. Difficult discussions for athletic administrators to have, much less someone who's going into her senior year of soccer and looking at a reduction in contests, a reduction in access to a championship field, and where we landed as the MIAA from financial perspective, where almost every one of our championships will be reduced by at least a day. The majority of the conference championships will be taking the top half of teams, if not less, that go, and it will have further savings for institutions as we navigate a very difficult financial year across our region and across the country as well. Very appreciative to our commissioner as well as our coaches for having positive attitudes and leading during that time. On the health and safety piece, that's also gotten a lot of news and note lately. At Missouri Western, we started our phase 1 return to athlete socialization on June 6th. And we welcomed 80 student athletes back to campus, 60 of those living on campus and football student athletes. And our athletic training staff, in partnership with our team physician, Dr. Juan Dominguez, and the Mosaic team, have done a tremendous job of preparing our facilities for the return of athletes, doing it safely, and also having stringent procedures as we go to contact tracing and any potential positive tests. We have had great returns there with no positive tests directly related to the athletes in our weight room. And if that continues, we plan to open our next phase 2, on July 6th, where we plan to introduce another 40 student athletes back to campus, which will put us at 100. Typically for a summer, we have about 150 student athletes on campus. So it's a phased approach. And actually our phase started on May 4th. We had less than 10 student athletes living on campus for various reasons. Maybe it was injury rehabilitation. Perhaps it was they chose to continue living in our residence halls for personal reasons. And that was the day on May 4th when St. Joseph first rolled out its reopening plan, and health and fitness centers were available to reopen. And we took that time to reopen our facility to just that group, about 9 student athletes, and really get our procedures to a point where we felt good about reopening to a larger group. We felt good so far, and we'll reopen to an even larger group on July 6th, going into when mid-August approaches, and then all of our student athletes will return as well as the campus. Very appreciative again to our medical staff as well as our residence life staff for making some significant changes to the way they're structuring the residence hall room situations here for this summer. So those have occupied a lot of our time in athletics, but I do have some better news and some good news as we continue to move forward. We were coming off a year on our basketball programs and football programs where we felt momentum and excitement going into this 2021 year that really we haven't had at any point, as all 3 of those programs moving up. Our women's and men's basketball teams were 26-3 at home last year. Our football teams coming off back-to-back bowl wins. And then COVID hit, and we were worried about what would our season ticket renewal base look like? What would our Gold Coat revenue look like? And a core piece of our annual fundraising that as we are reducing our budgets, we need to increase our revenues in order to continue to survive. And our early numbers have been absolutely tremendous. Brett Easley, our Senior Associate Athletic Director, just sent me an updated numbers here this afternoon. So it's updated even within the last 10 days of your board book. But we are at an all-time high in Gold Coat revenue ever right now on June 25th, 24th. And typically, the majority of our revenue comes in right before we kick off our football season. We have initial wave, and then we have a whole lot coming. So we hope it keeps going. So historically high season ticket renewal rate, we're at 103% of our annual goal. We've never been up at 70% of our goal at this time of year. That's fueled behind a 95% season ticket renewal rate. We have a 15% uptick in new memberships. And so that worry that we had with the economic situation locally and COVID, it's shown that the momentum behind those 3 programs especially, and then others that are stepping up and supporting athletics is strong. And that's a great sign and something we've really celebrated. On another note, our athletic staff for the first time, every full-time staff member is a member of the Gold Coat Club, which is an important piece where we say we're all in and hope our community surrounds us as well. We've talked a little bit about GPAs. We've had 5 straight record-setting semesters, and that was another area where we weren't sure where our GPAs would be after a interrupted and distanced semester that just took place. I'll go back to 2 years ago. We were fortunate to add a member of our staff, senior woman administrator and associate athletic director, Teresa Grossbach. She was the athletic director at Baker University, and she was a 4-time AD of the year for that league. She was a national administrator of the year at the NAIA before she came here. And we had some pretty big goals to change the way our academics were structured. And she's taken that and overseen that. And what we've seen is what's in your board book, where we have the highest GPA, cumulative GPA ever on record after this semester at 3.22 as a department. Our high team cumulative is a 3.76. The lowest is a 2.92. We want to get all of those teams over a 3.0, but it's the first time we've had everybody at a 2.9 or above. 94 MIAA Academic Newcomer Awards is a record. Really, essentially every academic record has been shattered for 5 semesters in a row, and Teresa's played a huge role in that. Obviously, our student athletes and their commitment is strong, and our coaches are bought in as well. But there's really encouraging news on the Gold Coat season ticket renewals and the academic performance of our athletes in areas where we just weren't quite sure where there would be. My final update for you is with women's lacrosse. And that was another one where when March happened, we weren't quite sure what the recruiting would look like. So the NCAA had restrictions on any type of on-campus or off-campus recruiting until June 1st. And at the time, we had about a dozen women's lacrosse student athletes committed to the program. Today, we have now, there's 23. It was 22 at this print, and I can't add the state or tell you the 23rd because she hasn't signed yet, but we're at 23 commitments. That's right at the average size of a Division II women's lacrosse program. She built this without many of these student athletes being able to visit our campus. Our revenue projections based off of projected tuition, room and board minus the scholarship discounts is well above where we were projected. And we are looking at in the most conservative fashions, a well over 6-figure net return on that investment here for year 1. And our target roster, to put that in perspective, by year 2 is to be at 30. At this rate, I won't put pressure on Rachel, but she's trending toward getting that in year 1. So it's been a tremendous start for that program. And we also have some exciting news that we'll be able to share publicly with that program and their schedule and some affiliate membership for a conference for them that we'll share next week. With that,
Josh, lacrosse plays in the spring.
The spring sport, that's correct. They'll play on our football field at Spratt Stadium. There are no spring sports held currently at that complex. They will use their locker room will be our visitors football locker room. And so all the facilities are there. And now we will be able to have some competition on that field in the spring, where right now we just have 15 spring football practices in the spring game on a normal year.
Yeah, that's quite a feat to be able to get 22, 23 commits when we can't even have visits on campus.
Yeah, Rachel Benzing, the head coach, I tell her once a week she's fearless, and she's just done an absolutely tremendous job building that roster.
Yeah, great job.
Josh, can just fill in a few of the gaps. How many scholarships is Missouri Western giving out for lacrosse?
Well, of those 23, I believe she's used 4.5 or 5 total. The model we present to the board was essentially a discount rate of 33% is the average as you go through there. So when you look at what that tuition rate is, that targets net return of 2/3. Right.
And just kind of going through the list of where these student athletes are coming from, some of the misinformation out there about lacrosse not being a high school sport, at least in this area. But a number of the places that these student athletes are coming from would be out of state tuition, correct? I mean, when you start looking at states where they're kind of like one from Canada, New Hampshire, New York, Virginia, 2 from Maryland. Those are states that don't get any of the Griffin discount, correct? That's correct. It is true out of state. And with that, women's lacrosse is the fastest growing sport in the country at the NCAA level. It's it's growing rapidly in club areas in St. Louis and in Kansas City. We still have 8 Missouri athletes as well. St. Louis area is a big recruiting spot. If you look across the river, obviously a different level than NAIA and Benedictine, they're coming off of a national championship appearance 2 years ago in women's lacrosse, built primarily with Missouri high school lacrosse players. So there is a demand for lacrosse locally, but where we are is the only public institution
in Missouri that is sponsoring women's lacrosse. We've also found a recruiting advantage there with competing against private schools that have a much higher price tag. And some of those out-of-state student athletes, this is a very attractive destination for them to continue their careers.
And more from a global perspective, I appreciate all that information. Can you just, in general terms, talk about how our university funds the funds that athletics gets from the university in comparison to our peer institutions in the MIAA, whether we rank towards the top end, the middle, or towards the bottom in university money that goes towards athletics, and then compare that and contrast it with the private fundraising that you do or that's done for our athletic teams here that is private funds in comparison to those institutions.
Sure. From an overall budget perspective, Missouri Western Athletics is in the lower quartile, the lower 1-4% of the MIAA institutions. We have the lowest student fees that prop up athletics in their budget, and we take pride on that. So our students here aren't gouged to support athletics through that fee. We also have more sports. Our sports rank in the top third of the league. So you're funding more personnel, more sports, more student athletes, which is important in the partial scholarship model than our peer institutions. For the last 2 years, we've led the MIAA in external revenue and support to fund general operating budgets. So we take pride on where we are in our fundraising compared to our peers. And so we're spending at the end of the day lower in the lowest quartile of our league, and we're raising money at the top. And just if you looked at from a numbers perspective, you would expect that Missouri Western Athletics would be a cellar dweller in the MIAA strictly off finances, and we're proud that that's not the case.
Outstanding. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yeah, Al?
Well, first of all, I'm going to tell you your Gold Coat fund is going up because I got a check in my pocket for you right now.
How about this? Is the more good news? This is perfect.
Yeah, I know.
Thank you.
So, but
It's a blank.
Well, yeah. So we're at 103% of goal. So yes, how much would you like to get us there?
But having been on this board for now a year, I've had several people. Obviously, when we talk about the Chiefs, they keep asking me, how much money does Missouri Western make off of the Chiefs? And I said, well, we don't really necessarily as a college look at that as a revenue. The community benefits mightily from that. But as we are doing better at our cost accounting and everything else, can you actually, is it actually potentially a minus number for us?
I could tell you from the 2 training camps that I have fully been part of, and a piece of a third, we have been in the green on both of those camps.
Okay. How close is it to break even or whatever else?
Last year it was significantly not close to break even. The year before that, it was still a decent amount for us. I think that, and we're projected this year for that to be the best ever. I don't think that's been the case.
Too bad
Al, I don't think that's been the case though. Throughout the year, I think it's typically been for the 10 years of camps, pretty close to break even one way or another. There were some renegotiated terms of our contract with the Chiefs, specifically with field labor and personnel, which are core costs. Obviously, the team has gotten better, so revenues have gone up as well. And then we were fortunate to able to partner with additional sponsors. Our sponsorship revenue has gone up. Those fields have naming rights now as well.
Right.
But from a program perspective, how important it is, and I talked about this a little bit yesterday with some reporters. Our golf team funds nearly its entire operating budget off of concession sales at Chiefs Camp.
Right.
And I guess the silver lining is their season was canceled, and they had a really good 2019 Chiefs Camp. So they have no revenue coming in, but they have their fundraising they did not spend, which will carry over. But we rely a lot internally on Chiefs Camp.
But Al has a check to give you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for this year on the Chiefs, I mean, we were anticipating that it probably would have been, particularly with the Super Bowl champs,
Yeah.
that we would have netted, close to $200,000 probably.
Yeah. Our hopes were to push over 200.
So, I mean, as we talk about the different COVID losses.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, we talk about, you know, the $3 million from the state over the course of the last 3 months. Plus, we're looking at potentially between 2 to 4 million next year. Plus, you know, you keep on adding that. You know, the Chiefs camp unfortunately becomes another casualty for
Yes.
us, because it has been, you know, under Josh's leadership in particular, it has been something that has been profitable for us. Plus, it's helped fund some of our athletic teams. So we're looking forward to it coming back next year, but it has been a positive. And as I've told folks with Chiefs Camp, one of the biggest things in my mind is the service that it provides to our community by
Yes.
attracting people from not only around the state, but around the nation and around the world. So it really is a jewel of our campus. You know, kudos to the city and the county and private industry. You know, they stepped up at no cost to the university and added additional seating and a berm on
Right.
our facilities. You know, truly, as we talk about engagement of the university with the community, we have so many projects going on with the community. And this is just one prime example of that.
Right.
Yeah, it's a great loss for economic impact for the whole entire area.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Looney. Great job. I appreciate your positive attitude.
We all appreciate that.
Yes. Financial report. Daryl Morrison. Was he gonna leave?
You skipped just.
We were talking about positive attitudes. So
Yeah, I think she. Yeah.
we were going to.
So we did have a little bit over an hour finance committee meeting that was live streamed prior to this board meeting. So everybody would be aware of that, and we're going to be reviewing it again.
All right. Thank you again. I'll try to be a little briefer than I was as chair. As Governor Smith indicated, we have reviewed these documents. Want to do it in the official board meeting though. Here's a financial report and update. The budget to actual comparison that we previously discussed. You see our tuition and fees on line 1 as we begin to look at all our funds combined for the university. Tuition and fees were 102% of our revised budget number, and we discussed this as the summer numbers are a little higher than we anticipated them being, which is a good thing. Still below where we were last year, but above what was projected at that time. You see the other numbers are below, for the most part, of the budget numbers from a revenue perspective, but fairly close to what we were expecting at this point in time. There are two numbers that really stand out: the housing number of $704,000 and the food service number of $366,000. And that primarily is due to COVID-related things where our students had to move out, and we gave them credits and or refunds depending on their situation for the future. Our expenses, you'll see we're running at 87, 84% respectively for the salaries and compensation fringe benefits, which will equate, I believe, in the final numbers of the year. We should have some salary savings there. So we're behind, which is a good thing. Supplies and services are at 80%. This is direct reflection, quite honestly, of the spending freeze that we put on campus a few months ago, given our current financial situation, and our utilities are running about as expected. 80% were under somewhat. There was a question in the finance committee meeting about our utilities and the budget for next year and what we were anticipating. But given our circumstances right now,
we're doing quite well. Okay. Let me back up one. If you notice, our scholarship numbers are 983,000 over what we anticipated budgeted. I might point out that that number includes $1.8 million of COVID-19 money, CARES Act money from the federal government that we distributed directly to our students. And so that was a pass-through on that, but that number is included there. Okay. It is also, the revenue side of that is also included in the grants number here on that. So that was a wash for us. State appropriations, as I mentioned earlier, we're anticipating receiving another 193, and we have received it as of today for this year. So we have revised that budget number. You see the other numbers as we go along. Currently, as we stand right now, we are at 5.1 in the black. We will not end the year on that number because we have no more revenue sources really to come in for the year, and we still have operational expenses. Our numbers projected at 2.4, I think we'll beat that somewhat, but it will really depend on the last minute transactions of this month and as we adjust and do some normal accounting entries throughout the year. Okay. Questions on our current year's budget and financial situation? Okay.
One statement for those that didn't join us in the financial committee meeting. I see we've got close to 90 folks that are online that are watching. But just one thing, and I expressed it before, I just want to express my appreciation for everyone on campus and their understanding. I mean, it's been a very difficult year. Unexpected news, as we've talked about, the financial challenges that we have, COVID-19 and the like. I know that this has required a lot of sacrifice from many folks. And so just want to express appreciation. And then also, Daryl, to you and your team for everything that you have done. I mean, this is just an incredibly challenging situation. And the fact that, we were talking about losing over, $3 million. And, I think at the end of the day, as you talk about a -2.4, I mean, hopefully we'll be down in the 1 million range somewhere along those lines. I mean, that's a major accomplishment, especially since the governor's office, decided out of necessity, right? Lack of state funds with COVID-19 that, they were going to withhold $3 million from us in the last 3 months. So, expenses have been on stand down, but also, I mean, we have just been hit from left and right. And, but for those withholds from the state, we would be in positive territory right now by a couple $1 million, actually. And so I just want to thank everybody collectively for their efforts. I know that it's been difficult and sometimes it's hard to understand, but, we have been making some progress to help this university survive and sustain and really be on the right track going forward. So thank you.
And Daryl, I just kind of like to strap onto that a bit because we have made tremendous progress with this. Senior administration was tasked by this board with difficult tasks, and you have delivered when there was against a lot of odds to do that. What you're showing here and the byproduct of this is what I think is lost a lot. The discussion the narrative continues about our university, a financial crisis. And yes, we pulled that lever, but what doesn't get talked about enough is the plan. The plan is in place. The plan is working. That's why all of these painful and difficult things were done. Not for the sake of doing them. We all wish we wouldn't have had to, but senior administration led by our president through you as the CFO on down to lots of other people have put this plan into place, have come up with this plan that is got us on the right track and has got us moving. And but for these just bizarre, unforeseen circumstances that the entire country and world is dealing with in COVID-19, we would be well down that track and we'd be talking about a lot of different things. But to your all's credit, you've stayed with it, and this plan keeps evolving and gaining momentum, and should be gaining more momentum with this university's supporters of where we're going with this. It's not just that we had a problem, that is true, but we have a plan that is fixing those problems. And if people get behind that and support this university, let the plan play out and see where we're at. We already are seeing tremendous progress on that. Let's see the progress that this plan gets to make in 6 months, in a year, in 2 years, in that amount of time and more. We may forget that we even had these problems back then if we let the plan work and support it. So thank you for the plan that we're working on.
Thank you, Governor Teeman. And I think, this slide kind of shows exactly, even in the midst, we've talked about a lot of things and a lot of accounting things and things like this. But at the end of the day, it's what's your cash position? What do you have available to pay your bills, right? As you can see in 18, it was 13 million. At last year,
Screen froze up, I guess.
A message saying,
Hey,
they're back.
they're back.
Okay.
You hear now?
You're back, yeah,
repeat
I
everything.
think.
Did you hear everything Governor Teeman said?
No, but I second it because I heard the first part, and he's absolutely right, how much this university means to all of us here, not just the board, but our students and our faculty and our staff and this community. And we are doing everything we can to move forward and make progress and have a vibrant future. And it's thanks to our leadership team, President Wilson and his team, for getting us there. We just keep moving forward.
Thank you.
I do have a
Thank
question.
you, Lee.
Okay, I'm sorry. Question? Yes.
Yes. About, you said it was 1.8 million that was cut from state funding. Is that a percentage, and is that proportional across?
We received 1.8 cut initially, and then we received almost 1.1 additional cut. So really, it's just under $3 million that we have lost in this year in state funds.
In state funding. Is
Yes.
that proportional to the amount of funding that we were receiving compared to other universities in Missouri? Is it a percentage, or is it?
They did it on a percentage basis, but the structure of the funding, and not unlike many other states, is not based upon any real data. It's just kind of who it was, and it's evolved over a long period of time, and who gets what, and who's got strong representation and who doesn't, and those type things. So they cut everyone's percentages the same amount, but everyone's not equal.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So like the University of Missouri, for example, because they are the biggest benefactor of state appropriations.
Right.
And because they did it on a percentage basis, saying we're going to cut this percentage out.
I guess that percentage was the question, because
Yeah.
I believe we were the second lowest funded state university in Missouri.
There are a couple that are below us.
Couple.
Yes.
I think there's two, so we're probably the third
Third now.
lowest in terms of the public 4 years. But the University of Missouri took the biggest hit from an actual dollar standpoint. So if you look at the Mizzou system, and the last time I checked, they had done maybe 2,200 layoffs actually, excuse me, 2,200 furloughs, like 150 layoffs. And they had convened something similar to what we did with our academic review board. And they were going through their programs and having a discussion about, what they were going to be able to afford to keep and not. So much of this comes down to, really, the financing that we get from the state. I mean, the tuition dollars that we have, and Daryl, correct me if I'm wrong, and this is good for everybody to understand.
Sure.
I mean, the tuition and fees that we receive don't even cover our salaries and expenses here on this campus. And so for every, dollar that we lose from the state, now we're hindered because, what do you do to make up with it?
Got to come from somewhere else.
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
And kind of to your point with that, the University of Missouri system lost or got cut about $20 million. It's about what our entire appropriation is
That's correct.
From the state. And it is all proportionate, but when you look at those are issues that President Wilson has been working on in Jeff City to try and correct.
That's
when you have things such as the University of Central Missouri gets about what Missouri Western and Northwest Missouri do combined.
Right.
They have a larger enrollment, but still it is based on some of the history of institutions, and that is something that our administration does not get enough credit. The amount of times that I have talked to our president on the phone when he's called me and I thought he was at home and he's driving back from Jeff City. He was down there a lot, and we were making inroads on that. The appropriations we got for the Center of Service or Center for Service that had gotten through the House Budgetary Committee, which is amazing to have navigated that minefield in a first year here to have how much money?
It's $1 million in the original House budget. Again, that was another casualty of COVID-19. But to have $1 million in that budget that would have gone to our core appropriation, meaning that we would have gotten it every year. I mean, we were really excited about that because there were only a couple of universities that had core increases in the budget.
Right.
And our president had garnered for us over $1 million for renovation of Scanlon Hall. That was also a casualty of state budget changes.
We were very, very close on that.
Yeah.
So that is a complex historical formulas with that we were making and are making tremendous inroads on because of burning up the road between here and Jeff City, because of our administration making these strong connections with our local leadership here and just building these relationships with state delegation here has just been tremendous with that we are on the same page with. We have a great legislative group and our president has really developed and growing those relationships that we believe will come back once the state gets to some more normalcy, just because the money's not there. I mean, it's just tax casualties, but the sentiment is still there. So fantastic questions you're asking.
Can we get that in writing that they were going to?
Well, I would say that
It's actually in the published budget, but the idea of it coming back,
Get framed.
I would also just add to that, just for informational purposes, the university was to be the recipient of an additional $1 million this year from what we had in times past, and that's a result of our, as Governor Teeman mentioned, our local legislators supporting us and working with others, and so we're very thankful for that. Who knew all this was going to happen and we would be cut? But even with that, without the $1 million, we're still $2 million behind where we would have been. So anyway, we'll move on. Any additional questions on the current year? Okay. Tuition and fee update. Once again, we approved our tuition and fees at the last board meeting. I've got a few edits to make to that. This should all be in your packet. And we went through this at the board, primarily what we were at the finance committee meeting earlier. Primarily we're adding a fee here that was omitted. We are correcting a couple of numbers on these and a correction here on materials and technology fee. The course fee here, I'd left off the 25 for some of our art material classes. We've got that in. No changes to room and board. These are the additional fees that we discussed at that time. The parking permit is really the bigger issue on this. That's a change. That's something new. And that is that all students and all employees will not be assessed this. This is for your vehicle. So if you drive and you park on our campus, you have to have this view. Have other forms of transportation. You do not have to have a permit. Okay. So any questions on tuition and fees? Okay.
No, but Daryl, hey, Daryl, would you let me go back and get a motion to approve the financial report? And then,
And I would also like for you to approve the tuition and fees.
right, before you go on to the next, we'll do them one at a time. I think you're all there. Can I have a motion to approve the financial report as presented by Daryl Morrison?
So moved.
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Any other questions? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion passes. The next two, a motion to approve the 2020-2021 tuition required fees, room and board rates as presented because due to the edits that Daryl needed to make. Motion?
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
I'll second.
Second.
Thank you, Kayla. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposed? That motion passes. Okay, thank you, Daryl.
All right.
Next up,
The next item on our agenda is our proposed budget for fiscal year 2020, 2021. And we talked about this in some detail in the Finance Committee meeting. I've got a synopsis for you that shows a comparison of our operating revenues in all funds combined. The revised FY20, proposed FY20, we see a decline of 688 in our tuition and fees for next year. We see 1.5 loss, change, not a loss, 1.5 change and $863,000 change in housing and food service respectively. So we're anticipating $4.5 million less money in normal operating for next year.
and you did that a very conservative estimate.
Yeah, that is a very conservative estimate. It is based on a 12.5% downturn in student enrollment. We're hopeful that it will not be that. Okay, salaries and compensation, fringe benefits, supplies, services, travel are all declining from the current year's budget to next year due to some changes in personnel and staffing on campus. Supplies and services, just trying to tighten the belt a little bit more. Travel, primarily, some of this is in the athletic realm and student travel because we're uncertain what we'll be able to do. We already know that some of our athletic travel will be reduced for the fall semester. So we have trimmed expenses, operating expenses by $8.6 million.
But Daryl, just so we're all clear with that.
Yes.
Again, part of the plan, this isn't just asking for more money or trying to find other sources, which is part of it. Your budget is trimming over $8.5 million off the previous budget.
That is correct. That is correct. State appropriations, we've talked about this several times. 3.8 is what we're estimating. That's 10% plus another 10% because we are anticipating quite possibly a another hit from the state on our state appropriations. So we're trying to be very conservative on this. And so $3.8 million down from the total appropriation for us. We see our other numbers down through there and holding fairly constant. We've got a capital budget in there of some $500,000. That's primarily reflective of some very much needed maintenance, a couple of HVAC units on our campus for some of our buildings so we can make sure everyone stays cool this fall and warm this winter. Okay. The bottom line here is that with all of these changes, we're still short. We knew we would be short. That's why we laid out a plan and we have gone to the foundation, Missouri Western State University Foundation, and we have worked with that board, and they have been very gracious and have looked for ways to assist this university through this time to give us a longer runway to let some of our plans come into play and into fruition over a period of time. And so they have set aside and have for our use more than what we have projected right here for use. How much of what that will we need to withdraw from the foundation? That's yet to be determined. If the state, as you can tell, if the state turns around and releases all the state appropriations, we won't need to borrow anything from the foundation or to receive any additional funds, because had that not been cut, we would have a balanced budget for this year, but that's not the case.
So just to highlight and confirm, Daryl, right? So, I mean, at this point, the state has indicated a 10% cut.
That is correct.
Which is about 2.1 million. We have been informed that additional cuts are likely coming. In fact, kind of the informal consensus around the state is it'll probably be another 10%, right?
Right.
So, you know, we are, I guess, in this budget, you are anticipating a $4.2 million decrease in state funding. So if we didn't have state funding cuts based on COVID-19,
Yeah.
the budget actually would be 300,000 in the black.
That's
right.
Yeah, could be.
Somewhere
Yeah.
around in there,
Isn't that
right?
right?
So, I mean, you know, we're hopeful as the economy recovers that, you know, maybe if the federal government were to step in, that original 10% that's in the General Assembly budget, there's a provision there that if a certain level of federal funds come in, that maybe that will be funneled back to the university. You know, if we get lucky there, maybe that'll be some relief. If we only get cut 15%, I mean, there'll be some relief there. But I mean, the point being, this really is a byproduct, as much as we don't want to have a negative balance, it's a byproduct of the state decrease. And to show you the progress that we have been made, when we were talking about this a couple of months ago, I mean, really, we were looking at a negative $7.5 million budget. So again, to Governor Timon's point, you know, this plan that has been put in place is working, and, you know, we are seeing the impact. And some of the personnel moves that we've had to make as we go through this next budget, the following year, we anticipate that it will be a fully balanced budget. And if we happen to get lucky and get some of that state funding back, then, you know, we'll be in a spot where maybe we'll be able to repair a couple of more HVAC things, do some additional things.
Daryl, another piece that I think maybe should be highlighted a bit, because
Sure.
I am the Board of Governor representative to the Foundation Board.
Yes.
And so that everyone knows how that process works, that both yourself and President Wilson made multiple appearances to the Foundation Board to make lengthy presentations to answer all questions that were presented.
Yeah.
The Foundation Board put together an executive committee, which was made up of the chairs of all of the Foundation Board's committees, and analyzed the request and the process for what they could do, and then presented that to the Missouri Western State University Foundation, and the request was unanimously approved.
That's correct.
That as it was presented with that. There was certainly due diligence done
Yeah.
as to look through what funds were appropriate to be used. There was legal opinions offered with that. There was discussion, and everyone was in absolute agreement that all the funds were appropriately being used, and was also the unanimous sentiment of the foundation board that while it is a separate and distinct not-for-profit entity,
Right.
its mission is to support this university. And one of the points to that discussion was they've built up a balance there. The foundation has done a tremendous job in receiving donations and growing over the years. And one of those purposes is to be able to help out the university when there is a difficult time. It could be used for other things too. It's always more fun and exciting to talk about growth potentials,
Right.
but that is clearly one of the missions of the foundation board, and why it unanimously approved the ask from the university. But it was with full disclosure, once again, by our president, by our CFO, on multiple occasions going there to present all of this evidence. There was no rubber stamp. There was very good questions asked and due diligence, but it was also, it was reassuring and exciting to see all of the people on that board who are stakeholders in this university and care about it and care about this community stood up in unison to support this request and to show their support, not only for the university, but for the plan that is in place and clearly been articulated of what we need to do to make this university survive and thrive.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And back to, I would just, and I've thanked them all many times, the foundation board, and for their support.
Tremendous
and
people
everything.
on that board.
Awesome people. But please understand, as soon as we became aware of some of the challenges we were facing financially, we reached out. President Wilson reached out to the foundation board, and as you mentioned, we were there several times, but we reached out way back in September of last year to bring them into the fold on what we were facing in not unlike the campus, Governor Teeman, there was some questions and concerns about some things. And so we fielded those questions. We've been full disclosure outside of changing the name and the background. A lot of what has been seen by this board has also been seen in a slide presentation by the foundation board. And I just want to echo your thoughts to the chair of the board and all of those that are serving. They're great people, and they're very supportive of this university. And quite honestly, it is really good for me as an old timer in the college and university world to see a foundation doing exactly what it is established to do. So that's a personal objection.
And a point you made that I think even needs to go further, that all of this presented to the Board of Governors, to the foundation board.
Yes.
It's presented to the public. I am not aware of anyone who has asked for this type of information and presentation that's been denied by that.
No.
Our president has had an open door, and it's frustrating to me the amount of time he has had to waste, and other senior administration waste off on a lot of these wild goose chases, and has always offered to let people come in, and we'll talk to them about it. We'll answer questions. Transparency is in capital letters of what is being done. And this plan is in the forefront of what we're doing. There's nothing being hidden about that. And if anybody ever has these questions, they can ask. And they've never been turned down. We want engagement from the community.
Right.
We want everyone to know what we're doing instead of spinning it into misinformation and trying to tear us down. Move forward and build us up. Stop with the why and the how we go. Focus on the how we go forward. And that's being lost. And I'm frustrated because we have the fantastic team in place to get us where we need to go. And certain personal agendas are tearing it down. And that is not the majority. The majority is in support, I am confident, of the plans that are in place and the people we have in place doing this because they love this university. And we just need to get past the background noise and focus on the quality plan that is being presented to us. As we asked you to do. You didn't come up with this on your own. We demanded this plan.
Right.
You did what we asked you to do. And I applaud you for it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions?
Nope, we're good. Any questions?
Governor Landis.
You know, if I can, I'd like to primarily address this to those of you who are on live streaming, because I just finished my first year on this board. It's been real interesting, I might add, in the process of that. And I just recently retired from Herzog after serving them for 48 years. And echoing somewhat on what Governor Keenan said, when you go in here, and all due respect to accounting and everything else in here, all you got to do, and throughout my professional career, because I was president and chief operating officer, and if you weren't tracking your cash and going where your cash was going, you were going to be out of business at some point in time in life. And we did job costing and everything else. And if you saw a job going bad, it was the cash that showed you that. And what did you do to correct the problem? Well, you corrected the problem by modifying your production and your staffing and everything else to get you there. So as far as I'm concerned, hindsight is 20/20 every time. And to the point, you will not change history. And the only reason to be looking backwards is because you've got to be looking forward. And if there's something to benefit forward position, put it in play and move forward. We are 100%, I'm going to speak for this board, I'm going to speak for people in this community. If this university is going to survive, and it is going to survive, every bit of focus and time and effort is on a forward movement. We should be talking about how we're getting more kids here, how we're going to offer better degrees, make it whatever else in here. So I just ask all of you, everybody has a right to ask for information. Everybody has a right to do these things. It's whether I suffer from three things: logic, common sense, and good judgment. And we ought to be applying it now. So with that said, I'm retired now, but I've spent a lot of time here at the college here lately, and I'm happy to do that. But I just ask everybody else, let's take a deep breath and start looking straight ahead. A lot of time to talk about the past. Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you. So if there are not any other questions about the 2021 operating and auxiliary budgets as presented, can I have a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposed? That motion passes. And again, thank you, Daryl, and your team for all your efforts and time in putting this together. And I want to second everything that Lee says, I think, to that tonight, moving forward. It's a great plan. Okay, next up, you have information on benefit consulting services, and that would be.
We have, we have two proposals for you. The first one is a request for qualification.
Okay.
Number 20-093 for benefit consulting services. This was an item that was on our agenda for a previous board meeting. We pulled it at that time in order to clarify some documents and to provide additional information to the board. This was a request for qualification, and that being, it's not necessarily a low bid proposal. It is to provide, in our estimation, the better services. The selection that we are recommending is CBiz from Kansas City, Missouri. We've had a long-standing relationship with Hub International, formerly Trust. They are excellent people. I value their relationship, their commitment to this university. But at this point in time, we just believe, the committee believes and recommended to me that CBiz has a slightly better product and some different offerings that will benefit the university as we move ahead. And so with that, I would answer any additional questions.
In this request, or what we're looking to do, is it beyond the scope of what Hub International currently provides to us? Are we expanding the scope of those services?
We are expanding it slightly because everyone gave us qualifications and a proposal along with that on what they could do for us. And they provided some information and a proposal to do some things differently than what Hub is currently doing for us that we feel will be beneficial to us.
And am I right? Was CBiz the only one that had an in-person interview? Or
No. They were all virtual interviews.
Okay, they
were all 4 virtual interviews. Yes.
Okay.
We did them all. They were all done online.
And I see your scoring system, and
Yes.
I appreciate you providing that additional information to us.
Sure.
Just if you could clarify what some of the terms in there, like in the chart, it talks about like what I'm assuming is abbreviated for individual 1, 2, 3, and
Yes.
4.
Those were the members of the committee.
Oh, okay.
Individual committee members.
Okay, so that was the rank internally that got to the collective.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so the request is for CBiz $120,000, which is a 3-year total, correct? Annual pricing of $40,000.
That is correct.
And to be paid from a human resources department account.
That is correct. I'm sorry. Yes, Governor Landis.
What you're doing here is what we in business would call best value procurement system.
Yes.
Where it's not driven as quote unquote bidder. And the evaluation committee, in a lot of respects, in our experience going outside, was this all internal evaluators? Because a lot of times you go to the outside to ask your committee to be part of that. And so I'm just curious.
We've had
a lot of experience.
Yes.
That's the reason I'm saying.
Yes. In this particular case, we did not go outside the university. This is internal, but it was not for just one department. This particular contract deals directly with human resources department on our campus, but human resources did not constitute 100%
Well, that's my
of it.
question.
And we went outside. We had a representative from the staff side and a representative from the faculty academic side of the house that served on this committee as well. Yes.
So we had internally 4 people evaluated each of these entities. Were those done independently, or was it a collective evaluation?
They did them independently.
Okay, so with that, I believe if I'm looking at it right, within your evaluation, each of the 4, besides CBiz being the highest collective rating, it was also rated the highest by, it appears to me, each of the four individuals.
Yes. And as you see this, you'll see that, you know, Gallagher or USI or Hub or someone may have on someone's individual score may be higher than someone else in certain areas. So,
And
I don't want anyone to think here that all four of these are quality service providers, but you have to make a choice at the end of the day, and that's our recommendation.
Right. Well, and I appreciate the additional information to us, because obviously we are mindful if we ever use a bid that is not the lowest bid, that I echo
Be a good reason.
who has better understanding than anybody in here of what, it's not the lowest, it's the lowest and best.
Yeah.
Bid on that. So philosophically, I just wanted clarification.
And I will say that I'm partially to blame for some of the confusion here, because typically in years, I'm just going to say this, because in years past, the university has done a request for a proposal, which is primarily a bid, as we all know, right? And when I purposely went out for this, I wanted a request for qualifications because I wanted to get the best service with the best deal we could get. And so that's why we changed it up this year with an RFQ. So
Thank you for the clarification.
yeah, other questions?
Well, just one more. And all four proposal was fully educated on the way the process was going to work and how it was going to be scored. Because at points in times, being in, again, 48 years, you can get protests on proposals.
Yeah.
If not. So I'm saying here.
Well, we did try to explain to them how we would be scoring and that sort of thing. Did we furnish them our score sheets? No.
Well, no, but it's the process.
Yes, but the process.
Because it's the process that counts.
I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah. Okay. Other questions?
Debbie, I don't know if you can see back there, there are no more questions if you're looking to call the vote. Did we?
Did we lose her?
She muted.
Okay, sorry, lost you. I said, it seems like there are no other questions, so can I have a motion to approve the RFQ 20-093 benefit consulting services for $120,000 to CBiz? General Mason, maybe you'd like to make a motion.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Yeah. Okay.
Somebody made a second?
Yeah.
Governor Ebersol did.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes.
All right.
Thank you, thank you.
Next.
And Daryl, we've got one more thing, right?
One more, right. The next item on is a bid proposal, FB 21-003 for athletic medical insurance. This one will be a little simpler to understand. We want the cheapest and best we can find. Okay. But we're recommending Dissinger Reed from Overland Park on this cost of $199,276.
So we sent to 10 vendors and only received from 3.
Yes.
Who do we use now?
The second bid that came in there.
Yes.
And Dissinger Reed's.
Thank you, Josh.
Do you know the cost of the current insurance?
200, it's in the budget book, 200.
I can.
Yeah, it's about $70,000 higher than this.
Okay.
Roughly here.
The
premium in this one, we're changing the structure.
It's a structure, a little bit structure change and things, but from an outlay perspective, it's about 70,000, I think. I don't have my book in front of me.
Okay, so the request is to approve for Dissinger Reed, Overland Park, Kansas, for a total of $199,276. It will come from athletic, insurance, and medical fund. If there are no further questions, can I have a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Thank you. Was there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Lee. I think that was Lee.
Yes, it was.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposed? That motion passes. Thank
Okay.
you so
Thank
Thank
you. Thank you. Just a couple of quick points that I'd like to bring the board up to date on additional things. I know you're tired of looking at me this afternoon.
I can't even see you, Daryl.
You're blessed is all I can say. First of all, I'd like to circle back to Governor Barrett's question. I misspoke. It was not 70. It's about $40,000. I looked at the number in the budget.
Okay.
Second thing I'd like to point out to you concerning, we've got a couple of renovations that are going on campus even during this time. We're moving ahead. Governor Teeman has talked about the plan, and this is part of the plan. One of those is the esports arena downstairs here in Blum Union. The old bookstore is completely moved out now. Barnes & Noble, they've completely moved out of the space. University facilities team, the physical plant team, is currently working on the demo and changing some things up. We're doing it internally in order to save money. We have very qualified craft individuals on this campus. And so they're using their skills in that area, and we're looking forward to that. But they're also working on a varsity room associated with these sports over in Murphy Hall, and that will soon be completed. If not, will be completed in the next few weeks. I feel certain. Both of these will be operational, if all goes well, by the start of the fall semester. Okay. The second item is Hearns, and that is the new Barnes & Noble bookstore is where that will be on the bottom floor, and that's coming along very nicely as well. The university side of the thing and what we had to do internally was over and done with. It's now been turned over to Barnes & Noble. We've got a call on it next week as a follow-up in that area. So that's moving along, and that too will be operational and ready. So you can get all your Griffin gear there in times to come. The last thing I'd like to point out, I'd like to do two things. One, point out that with COVID-19 and all the things that were going on, we're taking extra precautions around campus while all of our buildings are not fully opened up at this time. We are doing additional cleaning in some of the areas, but not only that, we were the recipient working through the MWSU Foundation, and in particular the Helen Drawer Fund, and with her daughter Carol Tuttle, they donated several $1,000s out of their endowment funds, their business fund, to the university in order for us to purchase additional hand sanitizers, new sanitizing stations, cloths, and we've distributed those campus-wide for that. So I just wanted to thank Ms. Tuttle and the family and the foundation and for their support and their willingness to alter their gift slightly this year to help us during this time. So with that, I'll be seated. Thank you.
Hey, Daryl, just as I kind of stay on my same thing, another thing that I guess changes to anticipated budgets that are also COVID-19 casualties are the at least the preliminary agreements that President Wilson had established with the St. Joseph School District that would have been
Yes.
using Wilson Hall
Yeah.
for early childhood development, that would have been tremendous for the community as a whole, certainly for our students going into that particular discipline, as well as just another alternative revenue source
That's correct.
that President Wilson and senior administration had gotten inroads with. And but for the state having to cut the appropriations for that to the St. Joseph School District, we lost the potential for how much on that?
Oh, 300 or 400.
$300,000 or $400,000 per year.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah.
so-
Easily on that.
So
But
I appreciate you revising the budget
Thank you.
based upon revenue
Sure.
we thought we were going to have through no fault of anyone here. But it is to the credit of people here that we ever had the opportunity for those alternative sources of revenue, that as opposed to raising tuition to keep our tuition as low as it is
That's
in
right.
comparison to peer institutions, along with the cuts from the state. So those are the things, part of the plan we had asked to be done, was done, and then COVID-19 came in place. But we still keep having additional parts to that plan that are working.
Yeah, and I'd just like to say, while we're on that subject, Dr. Van Zyl, if you're listening, Jeff Ellison has drawn us a great set of plans. We're ready. Just give us a call, okay?
It's a wonderful relationship with the St. Joseph School District in Missouri West. That is absolutely no fault of the school district on that. It's just unfortunate for both of us. We were excited about the partnership.
Yeah, I mean, their state funding has dropped, not to the degree that ours has, but still considerable. And with all the uncertainty that's out there, but to that point, collaboration wise, St. Joseph School District is phenomenal. In fact, they will be holding their commencement ceremony in our stadium this weekend as well. So just another note of how we're working with the community.
And as a person who will be attending that, as a parent of a St. Joe's School District graduate, appreciate the university, all the things they do to help out, with that. It's a tremendous partnership that I can't even think of speculating if that partnership didn't exist, the impact that would be. So that is credit to the school district and to our administration here working together.
Okay, thank you so much. Next up, the report of the student governor, Hannah Berry. And I know you didn't have anything prepared ahead of time. I had mentioned to you, and it's completely up to you what you'd like to talk about, but I thought maybe if you're in agreement, you might explain to the board and those that are live streaming what it was like to have COVID-19 hit in the middle of your semester and how you coped with it, and maybe how other students may have coped with it.
Definitely, I can do that. Well, I think the best word to describe it, as juvenile as it may be, is weird. To leave for spring break and not come back for the semester, not a whole lot of closure there, I guess. And it doesn't feel like summer because it doesn't feel like I ended the semester, as odd as that may seem, but it is 90 degrees outside. Going home after spring semester, I thought, the reaction from universities across the United States was, there's so much going on. I think that I was pleasantly surprised by Missouri Western's reaction to COVID-19 and the ample amount of opportunity given many students' unique situations. I personally took credit for all of my classes. So I was done after spring break, and that was really nice for me to be able to just focus on working more and things like that. But not every student had that same opportunity, and the option for taking credit for your classes, withdrawing, contracting to do it later, or doing a culminating project and finishing your semester was a unique response to the situation, I would say, compared to what I have heard from peers at different universities in Missouri and outside of Missouri. And definitely, I would say that online learning is very different from in-class learning. And every student's going to take that differently. For me, it's something that I could have adapted to, and I'm in online classes this summer and was in online classes last semester. But I know that many of my peers are not a fan of online learning because of various reasons. I have to go to a coffee shop to do my homework. I can't do it at my desk at home because that's a different space for me. You know, it could be a number of factors, but I, as a student, really appreciated Missouri Western's diverse response. I feel like they really did put students in the first thought, you know, their situations and how they're all going to be unique. There was really a solution that could work for every student. So I really appreciated that when I was hearing from my peers at different universities that you're online and you have to figure it out. You don't have Wi-Fi, you have to figure that out. You don't have, you know, access to a reliable laptop. Go to the library. Well, the libraries are closed, you know. So it was definitely a really comforting solution, given everything else that was going on with COVID-19. That's kind of my personal thoughts on the issue. All just a time of transition, I would say. And I really was thankful for how Missouri Western responded to COVID, and also, you know, the continued efforts with Griffin Weekly coming out every week. My friends and I did the yoga and different things like that. Just little emotional supports that really do make a difference. So yeah, I don't know if anybody has any questions about.
Thank you. Well, you know, we're very fortunate that we have such great students such as yourself, but it all comes from the top, from President Wilson and our leadership team, who have made it known from day one that they are student-centered and put students first. So, and I know that they did everything they could to accommodate all our students and gave them many options that I know other universities simply did not offer to our students. So yeah. I know it's hard for all of you. It's hard for us old adults too.
Yeah.
And Hannah, we're so glad to have you on the board. It was disappointing for this board not to have that spot filled when Paul graduated.
Right.
It was absolutely, you know, nothing to do with either the administration or the board.
Yeah.
Names had been submitted to the governor, and there are other things that that office is also taking care of. And so even we were pressing we wanted that representation. If anything describes our university and our administration as transparency, and we want that student representation and involvement in here. So we're thrilled to have you. One thing I would point out, because and maybe other governors did too, but I'd received an email one congratulating you, but also a student asking the question about, you know, that you should be allowed to vote, and that it was maybe our decision for that. That's just for clarification. That's statutory. The legislature would need to change that. The legislature has made that the statute that puts student representation on state universities, but then they establish that protocol. So you get to participate in everything, open and closed sessions that everyone else does here. And we welcome your input, just as we have historically with the student leaders. And it's a testament to you that you had support of your peers, and you got big shoes to fill with Paul.
Yes.
But I'm extremely confident you will forge just as outstanding a path as he has too. So I'm excited, and I know everyone else is too, to have you on board.
Thank you.
And I have just two comments from my end. Senator Berry's like, who's talking? Just two comments from my end. One, thank you so much for your willingness to serve. Just so that everybody knows. I received an email or two from Senator Berry. It's probably back in March, just saying, this is such a critical time in the university's history. I am willing to serve. Can you talk to the governor's office again? And I wrote back to her, just to get somebody appointed, so, kudos to you and hats off for caring as much as you do about the institution. I mean, that truly means a lot. Oftentimes a student can come and, university is just a passing, fleeting type thing where you come and you leave. But my hat off to you for your willingness to engage, your interest in engaging. And as Hannah and I had that conversation, it's like every time in Jefferson City, I'm popping my head in saying, hey, do you have an appointment for us yet? Do you have an appointment for us yet? So,
well, they heard from me too.
so I'm glad that we were able to get you appointed and get that done. So thank you. And then also, that heartfelt feedback means a lot. So, as you might imagine, many sleepless hours and nights thinking about what is best for the students. And I think it's easiest just to say, hey, let's go online. But you hit so many things that are near and dear to my heart. As somebody who came through education not having a lot of your peers don't have that Wi-Fi access, or they don't have the reliable laptops. And so, as we continue to deal with COVID-19, and I'll talk about, what we're thinking about doing with respect to the fall here in a second.
Yeah.
I just want to let you know how much I appreciate that feedback and that heartfelt sentiment, because when we hear from students, it makes what we do worth it. So I just want to thank you on that count as well.
I think
Thank you
there's
so much.
one other thing that I could note on just as student governor. And I've had questions from St. Joseph News Press and other areas that are criticizing the lack of student input in recent decisions being made by the board. To which my response is, I do believe that administration has done everything they could to get student opinion and public opinion feedback on some of the major changes that have been going on in Missouri Western. There were numerous listening sessions with President Wilson behind the camera, numerous listening sessions with myself and the rest of student government behind the camera, and ample opportunity for feedback to be heard. So that is also notable. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. President Wilson,
Yes.
would you like to give the Board of Governors your report?
Sure, I would. Just one thing of note, in your board packets, you do have a report from our communications and marketing team and Joe Mel Nichols. And so, in the interest of time, understanding that this is a long session today with budget and some of the other things that we've got to deal with, Joe Mel and I were talking yesterday, and I said, "Hey, I've got you covered." So I would direct the board to the report that she put together, and then also at the same time, I'd like to recognize her and her contributions. So Joe Mel has let us know that she is going to sail off into the sunset and retire from the university here within the next couple of months. I begged her to stay a little bit extra. I think she wanted to do that, and maybe sailing isn't the appropriate thing. Something about an RV and going around the country and that. So I guess riding off into the sunset is the appropriate thing. But Jomel, just so that everybody knows, has been an incredible member of my team. She has impacted the university over the last 5 years just incredibly. So Jomel, as I get ready to tear up here, literally, I just want to thank you for your contributions. It's truly a major impact. So thank you. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jamel.
So as I fight back the tears now, I'll talk about some other things. One, just grateful for everyone and their contributions to the university. From a news standpoint, and I've reported on some of the stuff in your packet. I'll add a little bit more. Enrollment, we talked a little bit about that in the previous session. For summer, we're down about 5%, which is consistent with where we were in the fall and in the spring. With everything that has happened in the world of COVID-19, the fact that all of our classes in the summer are online, that's quite the accomplishment. And it's much better than we had anticipated. There are many universities around the country that are talking about, being down 15 to 20 to 25%, this fall, given everything that is going on in the world of COVID-19. For this coming fall, our returning students is running probably about 8 to 9% behind last year's pace. So hopefully we'll get even more of those returning students. Our new students incoming are down significantly more than that. But I know that our admissions folks are working hard and trying to get those 18-year-olds that are graduating from high school to choose Missouri Western, great opportunities here. Also something that's really excited, I talked about it at our last board meeting, and we are even closer. Believe that there was an advisory board meeting earlier this afternoon, but we will be rolling out our Center for Workforce Development on July 1. And so our Center for Workforce Development will be non-credit. We have about 200 courses that we're going to roll out, and subjects will include computer applications, business leadership, entrepreneurship, GED prep, career development. The center will also offer exam prep courses and certifications in cybersecurity, agile project management, data analytics, human resource management, Six Sigma, and lean management. So I know here in our area employers have been expressing a need for more training opportunities for their employees. And the great thing about this is an employee or even just an individual can start at any point in time. So if they wanted to start on July 1, you could start and you could have a cybersecurity certificate probably done in a couple of weeks. And courses are very affordable. I think the courses start at $49. There may even be some business skills courses that start at $29. And run up the scale to 800. So there will be certificates that will be part of that. We've had Annette Weeks, who is in our College of Business, who will be overseeing that. So we're very excited about that. Particularly, the timing is right as we have so many employment disruptions in our community. Very affordable, very accessible, and immediate. So we're excited about that. Also, wanted to talk about donations. And one of the things, as we have talked about our personnel alignment and restructuring, almost all of us have taken on additional responsibilities. And so one of the things is as we have our vice president for advancement cycling out, we've had some people step up in that realm, and I've had the opportunity of getting even more involved and immersed in the world of development and fundraising and our alumni as well. But just a couple of things to highlight in that realm as we're getting ready to roll out our center service here coming in the fall. We talked about lost opportunities with the state, but we're very grateful to the county, as the county has committed $25,000 to support our Center for Service. Also, I don't believe that it's been officially approved yet, but the city was kind enough to include $40,000 in its budget to help support our Center for Service. So we're really excited about that. We've also had some individual donors who have directed donations towards the Center for Service. Again, it's a great initiative, and we talk about the plan. It's something that is distinctive. It's something that we're excited. We appreciate Melody Smith and her efforts in terms of getting it off the ground together with Sarah Cravens, and we'll have Gary Clapp, who will be stepping into the directorship here shortly, and we appreciate that. Also, there's some in our community that have encouraged the board to stop and retreat. Retreating, does not seem like a viable option, very short-sighted actually. And as we think about, moving forward, the path is there. In fact, we do have support within our community. And so as we talk about moving forward with some of these initiatives, I had a very generous donor who wants to remain anonymous about 2 weeks ago, call me aside and slipped a $200,000 check into my pocket for some of these new initiatives and said, as you look to attract new students through esports and some of these other things, hopefully this will come in handy. This is the second time that this donor has done that. over the course of 2.5 months. And so kudos to that donor and that individual's family. But to have $400,000 for new initiatives, we talk about, esports and the degrees that we have academically, the community that it will engender here, and then also the opportunities that it'll present for all students. We're excited about that, and it's great to see the community stepping up and funding that. From the start, we've said, hey, we're not going to be spending money. It's interesting. I have $250,000 in privately donated money that was set aside from the foundation even before I came in, for the university community to understand how frugal we are being as we're coming up on year one. I think I hit my year mark here in about 5 days. We have spent $1,500 out of that account. The rest of it has been covered by our approaches. It has been covered by private donors. Does not come out of tuition dollars. And so, everyone should be assured and rest assured that we are treating every dollar with great care as we help to sustain the university and to put it on the right track. So thank you again to that donor. We had a check presentation last week, a foundation that wishes to remain anonymous, donate $75,000 in unrestricted monies. And that's something that we can use to support students and student scholarships. We've had our alumni pitch in and contribute over $10,000 for students and COVID-19 relief. Then right now we have a campaign to raise money for our new military and veterans center. We've got a number of you on the board that have been involved with that have been reaching out to folks. We've had offers of donations that are coming in. That again is part of our Center for Service efforts, and the idea is to attract military and veterans and their families, give them a great experience, help retain them, and help them graduate. And that's what we need to be doing. And so we're excited about that initiative and the support that has raised. And as we roll out this campaign, we're really excited about that. We talked about collaborations. You've heard about the St. Joseph School District. The provost talked about our new collaborations with Missouri State and also with Park University and some of our ongoing discussions with that. We're excited to see where those go. I'd like to talk a little bit about a new initiative here in St. Joseph that we are involved in, and it involves UMKC and their medical school. Brenda Shields is one of our local representatives, and Brenda, together with our friends at Mosaic, were approached by UMKC about rolling out a medical school here in St. Joseph in correlation with Mosaic. So I guess a branch of their medical school. The idea is that they will admit 20 medical students into this program per year for the next 4 years. So it will gradually get to 80 students. The idea behind this is to have medical training in St. Joseph and feed these individuals into rural communities where there really is a need for physicians and other medical professionals. And so early on, we started to have conversations with UMKC. And part of those conversations is, okay, how can Missouri Western be involved with this? This was very important to Representative Shields, very important to Mosaic. It was very important to us as well. And so as we have talked with UMKC, I just wanted to let the board know that we are having detailed discussions. There's a $7 million grant that just came through. UMKC is looking to start their program in January of 2021. That grant goes to UMKC, but our students can be benefactors from that because UMKC has talked about guaranteeing slots for Missouri Western students to get into this program, naturally, so long as our students are qualified. But we're excited to work with UMKC. They've also started to talk to us about other ways that we might be able to collaborate, having medical students here in our community, hopefully many of whom are Missouri Western graduates that are being fed into this. And so we're really excited. We appreciate Representative Shields and her efforts there, as well as UMKC and Mosaic. Dr. Looney has been instrumental in making sure that Missouri Western is in the ballgame as well. One other thing that I just want to point out, and I won't go over it in great detail, but getting ready to roll out a presidential task force on equity and inclusion. That's something that we had ready to go. We kind of got derailed by COVID-19. I've had conversations with our alumni association, and I'm a volunteer too from our alumni, talked to our student government about having representatives, and I'll be sending out a call to our faculty and our staff as well for volunteers. I'd like to re-examine our structure that we have right now and see what we can do better. And so that's something that has been in the works since February, but it's forthcoming. The last thing on my list is COVID-19. And, you know, as we talk about COVID-19, I mean, literally, this is something that we I was going to say breathe, but that probably is not the best thing. We don't breathe COVID-19, but, you know, we live COVID-19 on a daily basis. And, you know, you look back to when this started, it feels literally like it's been 10 years as we have been going through this. And I know how this has impacted everybody emotionally, mentally, physically, and my heart goes out to everybody that's impacted. And that's everyone in this room. It's everybody that's listening. And, you know, we have just tried our best to work through this. But when I say we, it really is this entire campus community. I know that people have gotten outside of their comfort zone, whether it's teaching or whether it's learning. I know our staff have been challenged in that regard. We have made a concerted effort to depopulate campus. And, you know, with that, there were some challenges. We have some folks that we've had to furlough or lay off because with a depopulated campus, there just is not the work. You know, if you don't have students that are here, and my heart breaks every time I think about those that have been impacted with that. But we appreciate the remote work as we move forward. You know, we are hoping for the best, planning for the worst. And with that, we have invited our staff who are interested in working from home because they may have health issues or they have health concerns or just worries. And so, you know, we still continue to have a new remote work system. We will have that as well. We have had a planning document that we have put into play, circulating right now. The challenge with COVID-19 is what you put in print today could change tomorrow. But, you know, I'd really like to thank Sarah Cravens for all of her efforts as our general counsel, spearheading that and all of the research that she has done in putting that together. We have been able to have conversations with our senior leadership team, the cabinet, the deans. You know, yesterday we had an exceptional meeting. We've had the faculty put together a task force, and they came up with their thoughts and ideas. We included student government. Hannah, that's something that, you know, maybe we can include you on as well in terms of, you know, as we move forward and have these discussions and conversations. Our staff association, you know, the leadership's being involved. And so as we have looked, we have learned, relying a lot on the information that we receive from the CDC that's geared towards higher ed. I have several conversations a month, almost on a weekly basis at the state level, whether it's the commissioner of higher ed, other university presidents. You know, we talk about, you know, what do you do to address this? And, you know, it's really reinventing a university, you know, whether we start with the A's and athletics, and I know Josh has spent tons of time on COVID-19, you know, all the way up to you know, the Z's. You know, we really are trying to do our best. And so we're at a point where within the next couple of weeks here, we'll release a comprehensive document that will relate to fall, and it'll be a planning document. Again, we're going to be relying heavily on our health officials, our local and state authorities, the direction and guidance that we receive. There's some talk at the state level about strongly suggesting testing. There are concerns about testing as it relates, at least in my mind, to the cost of testing, and also to the availability, and then also the fact, how do you test 4,000 people at once. And
Or
then
every 48 hours.
yeah. And then to that point, I mean, how long are they valid, right? I mean, testing would give you a snapshot of what is going on, but, you know, without follow-up testing and constant monitoring, I mean, our students come from all different walks of life. And if somebody's here on campus, unless we're creating a bubble over campus, you know, you can test, but, you know, within an hour, you've got the students that are already off campus that are interacting. You know, fortunately here in this area, you know, our hospitals have not been overwhelmed. We have not seen a lot of deaths, and we have been blessed in that regard, even though the impact is there. But we are, you know, listening, and we are learning with everybody else. One of the things that I wanted to just touch on here was there has been a lot of conversation around the country about how to address fall semester. And Senator Berry alluded to it. The online instruction, I think folks are capable of teaching and learning, but it's different. And, you know, here at Missouri Western, we have an applied learning mission and approach. There are some courses that you just simply can't put online. Doing choir or band in an online setting is more than difficult. You know, when we talk about art, you talk about having special software on computers, you talk about accessibility. There's so many different considerations, you know, with the university that, you know, we need to be sensitive to. And so at the same time, you know, folks understand that if someone is likely to get sick, it's probably going to happen during the winter months. And so you have universities looking at this, thinking about, okay, what do we do moving forward? You know, do we go all online? And you do have some universities around the country that have announced for fall semester, they're going to have all of their instruction online. There's some consequences to that. And there's some major impact as it relates to students and talking about, you know, it has to be about the students. But those are some of the calls that have been made. You have other universities that have said, in fact, two of my boys who are still in school, actually three of my boys will be at three different institutions this fall. Their institutions have all announced respectively that they are going to start at the assigned or the day that they had determined. So the predetermined date, they will start instruction. They will not have fall break. Most universities around the country have fall break in like October. So they're not going to have fall break. They will finish in-class instruction before Thanksgiving, and then they'll come back via online after Thanksgiving break to finish the semester or to conduct exams. That seems to be something that is fairly common around the country. Before, the Chiefs announced that they were going to be unable to come to St. Joseph, which we received word on Monday. You know, we had talked about that idea as a potential way to protect the health and safety of our employees and our students. And then also go ahead and do that. But as we talk about that, again, we run into the same issues that we had in the spring of telling folks, well, you know, go all online. You just have some courses that can't do it. You have students that just don't learn well in an online setting. You have some challenges, I think, in going ahead and getting it done. So we have been, you know, very reticent to do something like that, not to mention from a financial standpoint, the financial impact that it would have on the university if we have essentially a shorter semester here on our campus. As you saw, we depopulated campus in the spring, and we've had to issue credit, meal credits, and then also housing credits to folks who didn't get to spend the entire semester here. And in essence, we would be doing that. When the Chiefs canceled, and we had been talking about this for a while, the faculty advisory committee that was put together for COVID-19 talked about this. We chatted about this with student government leadership as well. The idea of moving the start of our semester up by 2 weeks. We were scheduled to start later than everybody else. We were scheduled to start on August 31st. And most institutions that I'm aware of are starting on August 17th or the 24th. And so we talked about if we took the start of the semester, August 31st, and we moved it up to August 17th, could we have an in-person on-campus experience such that we would finish our entire semester, including final exams, before Thanksgiving? And so as we have sat down and we have talked about that and moving that up by 2 weeks, we're sensitive to the fact that, some students work, that faculty have plans, that, there are some challenges to this. We're also very aware that it's a no-win situation, because if we stay status quo, the chances that something is going to happen and we're going to have to pivot again and shift off campus go up the later into December that we go. So there's a major concern there, particularly as you throw Thanksgiving into the mix. You have folks that travel out of state for family. You have folks that go on vacation. We saw that in the spring when folks went on spring break, that they traveled around. And I know of a couple of the students who, they got COVID-19. And, if they had been back on campus, we would have had, additional issues that were there as well. So we can't create a system where we have zero risk, but we have been talking about, including yesterday, our bigger administrative meeting where we had student government, we had faculty and Senate representatives, we had deans, and we had leadership talking about what about shifting that up by 2 weeks and finishing it off. And so we come before you today with understanding that time is at a premium. We're about 7 or 8 weeks away from August 17th, but the consensus of the group, by and large, with an exception or two, was that it would be in the best interest of our students to move the start of the semester up by 2 weeks. One of the questions that came up was, well, what happens if somebody has plans or they're unable to make it back? One of the other things that we're planning in terms of COVID-19 this semester is that we are going to stream and or record all of our courses. So if somebody was unable, particularly in those first 2 weeks, to make it back to campus or whatnot, they would still be able to participate in that class or those classes, and they wouldn't be penalized for that. And that's part of the move. And right now we are testing our IT systems. We have an independent third-party analysis. Corey's over there smiling, and Tom as well. We have an independent analysis and audit going on our systems. We do have some COVID-19 monies, right, Daryl, to apply to potentially upgrading our systems to making sure that it works. I've heard that our IT folks have been really busy, even running, mock sessions where 30 classes are running at a time, and they're streaming, and they're uploading to make sure that our systems can handle that. So one of the things that we will be asking our students is every day they need to self-monitor themselves, take their temperatures, make sure that they're okay. If they're feeling even a little bit sick, please stay at home. Please watch the class. And do it as well. So we've got a whole comprehensive plan in terms of the depopulation of classes. We may get creative in terms of if you've got a class of 30 and the seating capacity in that class is 45, we're looking to keep classroom population to about 50%. So maybe it'll be half of the class coming on Monday, the other class watching from home or their dorm room. And on Wednesday, the other half of the class coming in live, and the class that attended on Monday staying home or from their dorm room, watching online as well. But we're very, very sensitive to the technology access. We understand that rural internet access isn't the best, the availability of technology, but we also want to do what we can to ensure the health and safety of our students. Last thing that we want is an outbreak here on our campus. And even though we will have kind of quarantine rooms in certain segments of our dorms, we want to make sure that this is as smooth as possible. So that is what we are looking to do along those lines. There's a lot that is necessary to make that happen from a staffing side. But because we have been talking about this for a while, this was something that would not have been possible with the Chiefs being here because the Chiefs would have occupied our residence halls and some of the things, but because of the fact that training camp is no longer happening here, it makes it possible. And this is something that we're seeing universities across the country engage in. In fact, to go out and find a university that I think is going to stay status quo, you're going to be hard pressed. Not everybody has announced, but I think that's the trend that's going forward. This plan of starting our semester early and finishing everything before Thanksgiving actually got kicked off by Notre Dame a couple of months ago. And so that's what they have announced. So I wanted to present this to the board. It's not something that needs to officially be voted on, but I wanted to make sure that folks were comfortable. Any questions were answered before we go live with this. So anyway, that's the end of my remarks, but I do have that pending question. So if anybody has any questions or any comments or any thoughts on that, please let me know.
So Matt, I'm assuming that for the most part, each professor will get to dictate mostly how he or she will teach the class, depending on their own personal situation. Yeah, we've tried, and again, this kind of goes back to what Senator Berry alluded to. We have tried to be as flexible as we can to give everybody options. And I have not heard anybody around the country that did what we did during the spring semester. No.
And so as we talk about that, and I'm glad to hear it from other sources, people have said, wow, I mean, that really was, a great solution to a very difficult problem. I hope that we don't have to implement that again because it creates a lot of challenges, and that's part of this. But we sent out a survey to our faculty probably about a month ago, right, Doug? And so asking the faculty what their preferences are in terms of delivery modes. And we understand, somebody's individual health conditions or maybe somebody that they have at home. And being in front of a classroom, given the uncertainty that accompanies COVID-19, is not something that works with them from a comfort level or from a health level. So we want to be sensitive to that. We know from, some faculty, they might be a little more comfortable, in a position where they could be in front of a classroom, but the more exposure that you have, the less the comfort level is. And so, we want to make sure that there's an ability to do some type of a hybrid, course that's there. And then for those that have a higher comfort level, we want to give them the option of having the in-class instruction that's there as well. Same for the students, because for the students, we want to make sure that they have their comfort level. And, if they're feeling ill, hey, stay home. But, from the start, if you're not comfortable or you have less comfort or, whatever it might be, we want to make sure that we're sensitive to that as well. So again, we're trying to implement a very flexible system that works. Physical distancing, of course, having an on-campus experience, of course, but at the same time, we know in the classroom that you have things. I was our current faculty senate president. I was kind of joking with her a little bit, and she was kind enough to send me a plan. We've got some unique challenges. If you think about, she teaches choir, as you have, you talk about a classroom where you have particles flowing or flying through the air, that's going to be, one of the things that's there. So whether we're talking about choir, we're talking about our marching band, there's different activities going on in those classrooms as opposed to somebody who's sitting and listening. So, it really is a yeoman's task to almost literally try and reinvent the university while trying to balance all of the discussions that are out there right now. One of the things is what do you do with face coverings? And we see that in our society, and we're talking about that as well.
So last question, and I appreciate all the information. I don't guess anybody on the Board of Governors would be opposed to the university moving the semester up, doing what needs to be done. But so Dr. Davenport mentioned loosening up attendance policy. So I don't even know if this is antiquated or not, but so there won't be any requirement from a student to say, get a doctor's notice or anything like that if they're not feeling well and can't come, or if they have an autoimmune issue or.
Yeah, one of the challenges with that is doctors aren't issuing notes.
Right.
They want, and we saw this even in spring semester, and we've had other conversations. You've got kind of an overwhelming task at hand. And so the idea of, getting a doctor's note is really difficult. One of the universities in the state, for instance, I mean, they're having issues because they wanted to test their student athletes for COVID-19, and they have no local provider there that will do the testing. They sent their athletes and they said, well, do you have a temperature? No. Do you have a cough? No. And so they said, go home. We're not testing you. So, we don't want to put an undue burden on the medical system. I mean, for many, attendance is very important. And so, from a faculty perspective, you could still have attendance requirements. You just need to figure out a way to make sure that your students are in that classroom if they're there virtually. And there are ways to do that.
Okay.
There are ways to see, if you're doing Zoom, for instance, you can see, who's online in the Zoom classroom and you can take attendance that way. You could go old school. One of the things that I have done is I would embed a sentence halfway through my class. And this is when I'm teaching online. I would embed a sentence and I would say it 3 times. And I would say, okay, if you're listening, this is the sentence, you need to email this to me. And then, I would know who was attending and who wasn't.
Oh, that's tricky.
It is a little tricky. It's, but, so there are different ways that you can still have your attendance policy as a faculty member that you're comfortable with, but just track attendance differently.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from board?
Got a question over here from Senator Berry, or a comment.
Yes. So we're moving the semester 2 weeks forward, possibly. Is that condensing the semester by any proportion?
No.
It's not. So students wouldn't expect condensed or expedited materials throughout the semester?
No. So it'd be the same length of the semester. We would just be moving it up. One of the things that we need to determine is the test schedule at the end in terms of how that plays out. So our testing period is usually 3 or 4 days. I know a number of our faculty tend to give their exam papers like the last week of the semester. And so the semester would end exactly a week before Thanksgiving because of Gold Fridays. That gives us some flexibility that we otherwise wouldn't have had, which comes in handy with COVID-19 in terms of kicking the semester off and faculty engaging and students engaging and the like. So tests could be Friday, Saturday, Monday, Tuesday, or tests could be Friday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And so, we're just kind of talking about, what makes sense, knowing that people travel home for Thanksgiving. Do we want our test period to end on Tuesday, or do we want it to end on Wednesday? So we've been talking about fall graduation as well in terms of what we might do with that. So lot to be determined, but it would be the same length of the semester, which is a great question. We're just shifting it by 2 weeks. And then that way there would be a longer break for students and for faculty, and it would enable for some physical distancing with family.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a good question. Thank you.
Madam Chairman, I'd just like to chime in a little bit, a few comments. I know that we'll get to it later with in the executive session of one of the things will be an evaluation of the president for his last year of service. And my evaluation does not need to be confidential or protected by anything with that. When we set up, or when the Presidential Search Committee put together criteria in the fall of 2018 of what that committee was looking for on behalf of this university and on behalf of this community for a president, numbers of things set out there. And ultimately through that process, there was a unanimous hiring of the person who filled those qualifications in spades with that. We were looking for a president with a business acumen. We have that. We were looking for a president who was going to be innovative, who was going to be student-centric. We have a president who is driving students around on campus, helping them move in and out, shooting at basketball games, showing up at student parties and gatherings and these things that we asked for and got. Innovative and creative in a challenging economic time, and has delivered all of that. Been transparent at every level, and he should have been in a honeymoon period here in his first year. We are, as he said, 5 days short of a year. This is when he should have been getting pet projects, which accused of and obviously has not happened. And instead, it's these other things that we're having to deal with in that regard. I had previously said in meetings that I appreciated comments from the community and others, and appreciated the frustration, even being upset. It showed people cared. I don't have that view anymore. There was a time for that. It's past that. I challenge everyone in this community, and it's a stakeholder of this university. I challenge this board to be supportive of this president, to even be more supportive than we already are. And that's supportive not just in our meetings, it's supportive in the community. It's supportive in our private conversations. It's supportive in how we talk about this university and going forward, of whether there are questions. Of course there's questions, but we have a plan. And the plan isn't what gets talked about enough. It's all these other side issues. So I question the motives of people that want to attack now and question their loyalty and support and love for this university when personal agendas and petty items are more important than the overall good. And that needs to start here with us. I challenge myself. I need to do better with that. Our president and our senior administration needs to know there is unequivocal support. There are those in this community who want to use terms like rubber stamp as a derogatory term in there. I say to those people, they don't understand what the role of this board is. We do not micromanage. The role of this board is to set policy, to set directives for our senior leadership, starting with our president, of the objectives we want to be accomplished. Then we have oversight with that. We do not micromanage and go and talk to him about esports and lacrosse and things like that, because that's been presented to us already, because we know those are parts of the plan. So I say rubber stamp no, because that's a derogatory term, but we need to be more supportive. And I want our president to know, I want our community to know, I want everyone to know exactly where I stand and where I hope all of us continue to stand, that it's not just lip service of support of what is going on here and the plan in operation, and that we have the right president in place. It's that we will continue to support that and do a better job of that. That is not rubber stamp. That is doing what our mandated mission is here. And it was our plan. It was our directive that the president has put together. It's no personal agenda that he brought from some other place. He brought the characteristics and the qualities and the ability to deliver these things. And we need to let him do his job. And as long as I am on this board, this president, for what he has done, has my complete support. And I am embarrassed I have not done enough to demonstrate that to him and to everyone concerned of how much support there is for him. And my evaluation would be, if we had money, I'd give him a raise. I'd vote to give him a raise with that of what has been earned in this difficult times. And he has kept his mouth shut about talking about any of the side chatter or responding to that. He has always been positive. He's always tried to move us forward and has kept his nose looking in that direction. And as I said, I'm embarrassed I have not done a good enough job with that. And I'm challenging myself and hope everyone else accepts that challenge of giving additional support. Let no one be misguided of where our support is or that it's wavering in any way. So that's my personal opinion, and that will be my evaluation in executive session of our president.
I agree 100% with you, Governor Teeman. I accept your challenge as well.
Well, if that was a motion, I don't know whether I can accept. It sounded like Rick seconded it. So, but to the point, for the benefit, I'm going to say to the people live streaming, There was a meeting on Tuesday of major members of this community. I could not be present, but I had somebody that absolutely had my proxy there. And it was absolutely unanimous that our focus is exactly on the future. We as board members put in a 7-0 vote on a direction that we're going to take. And that direction was with full understanding that the president and his administration were to go execute it. We're going to be picking up some bylaw changes that I think we as a board will become even more active with it in the context of committees and things. So I echo what you are now hearing, and I want all of you back there to understand that. So.
Absolutely. My evaluation will be identical to Lee Tieman's. You know, I was on the search committee as one of 2 board members, and the board didn't write the attributes that Missouri Western was looking for in a new president. It was a committee. It was a committee of community members and business leaders and faculty and staff. And I carry that list with me a lot, and I read it a lot. And it's leadership profile when hiring a new president. It's 20 items. And there was no candidate that met all 20 items, but Matt Wilson. So we got exactly what this community asked for: mission-driven servant, strong understanding of trends, national issues impacting higher education, a strategic and proactive leader, someone with intellectual vitality, strong academic background, a visionary and entrepreneurial executive, a student-centered leader, a leader who is actively engaged in institutions' intercollegiate athletics programs, someone with knowledge of strategies for increased access, recruitment, retention, and student services and activities, an action-oriented creative thinker and innovator who has a track record of leading transformational change. I think there's 10 more. A connector who builds strong and meaningful relationships with internal and external constituencies. Matt's been everywhere. He's been open. He's been transparent. I don't know how many town halls he's had with students and faculty and staff and community, and he's out there every time. A proven fundraiser, like Matt said, or Lee said earlier, how many times he was on the road to Jeff City and back and forth speaking to donors in this town. An inspiring team builder, an administrator with business acumen and strong skills in fiscal planning and management, which has come in real nice and handy this year. A transparent and open leader who balances decisive leadership with inclusiveness. A data-informed, analytical individual. An individual versed in the potential and growth of technology and social media. A persuasive and effective internal and external communicator. An individual with high emotional intelligence, exceptional interpersonal skills, a genuine interest in others, executive presence, positive demeanor, warmth, I'm starting to can't read, warmth, resilience, personal integrity, moral character, humility, and high energy. And number 20, a person who is a highly visible and engaged community member and who makes St. Joseph their home. So thank you for being everything we thought you would be and more. And obviously, I would also like to give you a raise, but I won't vote to do that. And I know you wouldn't accept one anyway. So there's my open evaluation of President Matt Wilson as well. Okay.
Hey, can I make one more comment,
No.
Chair? Okay.
I was hoping for an
Yes.
answer.
One more comment when we talk about people. This whole process that has happened has hurt a lot of people. That should never have happened to people in this room, that out of this room, and that should never have happened. So let's suck it up and get focused on what we're here to do and why. We're here for the university. And it hurts me to watch people get hurt when there's no need for that.
Absolutely. Our focus, we're going to move forward. We're going to get stronger. We're going to be here for a long time and serve our students in this community. So we have another item to consider, and the Board of Governors discussed at our last meeting the need to become a little more involved and better educated. And Vice President Sarah Cravens has talked to us and will bring to us and explain amendment of our bylaws, Article 4 and 7, to form committee. So Sarah, do you want to, is she in the room? I cannot see her.
She is. She's at the mic.
Okay. Sarah, we really appreciate you putting this together. If you would go through it with us, and then the board can decide to approve this or discuss it. Sure.
So the materials here are under tab F in your board books. So these are unchanged since I presented them to you in the last meeting. These you voted previously due to the 29-day span between the two meetings to waive the 30-day notice requirement so that a meeting could take place at today's meeting. I received no proposed changes to any of the text. So again, what you have before you is exactly what we talked about last time. All that would be needed today is a motion to amend as proposed in the text provided as to Articles 4 and 7. So, so just as a reminder, these revisions are to create the committees that are listed: an academic and student engagement committee, a personnel, finance, and operations committee, the policy and bylaws committee, and then the opportunity again for ad hoc committees. And as hopefully you were able to read in preparation for today, it specifies membership, meetings, general charges, and an opportunity for a chair's charge. And then that's all in Article 4. And then in Article 7, all it does is remove the possibility for an appointment of an ad hoc committee to review the bylaws, because that would be taken care of by the committee on bylaws. So, any questions that I can answer? Or any concerns that weren't sent to me?
For people who weren't, either didn't follow our last meeting when we talked about this, we had provisions, as you've noted, for committees before, but it was primarily as needed type of committees. And now we are setting up standing committees with the thought that we are strengthening that oversight type of role with that we can have a little bit more work sessions done in between our regular meetings with various board members and administration involved with that. That they will not make policy decisions, but they will make recommendations back to our board. And so it's just trying to, so everyone knows of what we're looking at, trying to accomplish with that is just to strengthen our oversight role.
Exactly. And just as you just did in terms of recapping, like the finance committee that was before this meeting, the committee meetings would have all the same rules as regular board meetings in terms of notice, transparency, all of it would be the same.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you for your work. That was good. There were no changes to that. That wasn't because it wasn't read, it's because you wrote them very well. I usually like to edit, especially legal type documents, but you
Of course you do.
you did.
Governor Landis?
You know, having served on other boards in the past, when I first got on this board, it surprised me that there weren't the committees that exist today. And when we go back and what Governor Teeman was saying about our ability to do more, these committees absolutely give us the latitude to assist, the president and the administration and everything, because we will be actively engaged in it and taking some of the work, hopefully, away from or assisting you in the regard. So I think this is a very major move, and I'm tickled to death to see that we're going to vote, I believe, unanimously, but we'll see.
One very minor point I meant to add, which is that obviously if these are voted in today, we'll provide a revised copy of the bylaws. One thing I noticed along the way is that the board bylaws are not posted on the Board of Governors website.
Right.
And that's something that I'll work with Betsy to fix along with our IT folks, so that when they are revised, we'll make sure that they are available on the Board of Governors website.
Okay. And obviously the board, I think I had a personal conversation with Governor Landis the other day, and I did tell many years ago there was a time where we did have committees, but it just kind of went by the wayside. So at any time, the Board of Governors at its choosing can amend our bylaws. So if there aren't any questions, and I know we discussed it last board meeting and had an opportunity to read through it and understand the reasoning behind it, is there a motion to approve the amendment of Article 4 and 7 of our bylaws as presented on page 71, 72, and 73 in our board book?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes, and thank you very much, Sierra, for all your work on that. Is there any other business? And the last thing I have to do is the report of the chair. I guess that would be me for the last my last meeting of the year. Try not to cry. It's been an exceptionally hard year, as we all know. But we have the right leadership team and right, the cabinet members. It's been a very challenging year, but it's also been one of the greatest honors of my life to serve on this board with the Board of Governors that are sitting in that room. Like I said, it's been hard, but we're going strong. We're going in the right direction, and we're going to make it. And we're going to be a wonderful university. This university means a great deal to me personally. I was fortunate enough. Well, I was going to say to get married and move here, but maybe not. Move here in 1978, I think, and I had just finished my junior year at University of Missouri Columbia, and you've heard me tell this story before. So I finished my last year at Missouri Western, and boy, the experience is so different to come to Missouri Western from a huge school where nobody cared about you, nobody knew your name, nobody cared whether you were dead or alive or happy or sad. But at Missouri Western, you get treated top notch. And these professors love and care for our students. And I felt that many, many years ago when I was there. And I know this university means a great deal to the full board, our students, our faculty, and our staff. And lastly, a great deal to this community. So I know I've sent this to a few of you that are sitting in this room, but this kind of hits a nail on the head for me because it hasn't been a tough year. But this is I guess it would be called a poem by Leslie Dwight. And it says, what if 2020 isn't canceled? What if 2020 is the year we've been waiting for? A year so uncomfortable, so painful, so scary, so raw, that it finally forces us to grow. A year that screams so loud, finally awakening us from our ignorant slumber. A year we finally accept the need for change, declare change, work for change, become the change. A year we finally band together instead of pushing each other further apart. 2020 is not canceled, but rather maybe the most important year of them all. So thank you all very much. Next order of business is election of officers for 2020 through 2021. And the nominating committee would be Kayla Schoonover and Al Landis. If you would present to the Board of Governors the committee's recommendation for board officers and for treasurer of the board and secretary of the board.
Okay, Al and I have met, and he has spoke with the different board members. And at this time, we are recommending for nomination of the vice chairman is Rick Ebersold and chairman Lee Tiemann.
Okay. Any comments from the board on that? And what about Daryl Morrison as treasurer and Betsy Wright as secretary?
Do we go ahead with that too? I mean,
yeah, we can do it in one.
Okay.
Yep.
And the same with Daryl Morrison and Vicki.
Betsy, okay.
That's
Thank you.
She knows what I mean.
Okay, thank you very much. So is there a motion to approve the nominating committee recommendations? Lee Tiemann as chair, Rick Ebersold as vice chair, Daryl Morrison as treasurer, and Betsy Wright as secretary of the board for 2020-2021.
Well, isn't it up to us? She just made the nomination. I'm going to second it from that.
Oh, yeah, I forgot the second part. Thanks.
It's okay.
Okay, so Al has seconded. Thank you. Thank you for picking that up. Now is there a, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Congratulations, Governor Tiemann, Governor Ebersold, Daryl, and Betsy. Thank you so much. The next board meeting will be the last Thursday in August. And if we, as Betsy told me, if we keep the same schedule of our meetings, all our meetings have always been the last Thursday every other month, August, October, December, February, April, and June. And of course, there's always occasions where a special board meeting may be called in between. So any board member questions or comments before we would ask to move into executive session?
I would just like to comment and express to you, Debbie,
my thanks for your dedicated service to this board and to the university. The level of passion and love, unconditional love that you have for this university is exemplary, and I will strive to live up to that standard, but will not be able to match the passion that you have, and the behind the scenes things you have done are very much appreciated. I enjoyed and learned from our executive sessions, our pre-board meetings, and that this community and this university owes you just an enormous amount of gratitude for what you do to promote this institution and the people involved with that. And I just wanted to let you know how much I appreciate that. We do, because you are not here, we can't really give you.
Am I going to get a parking spot?
$500. Yeah, a discounted price for you.
I'll pay it for her.
We will have some other goodies there, but we do have.
Oh, thank you.
We show this very well.
You can get it closer to the camera. Tom will help.
And there's an inscription on that to you. I know how much the clock tower means to you. You had that
absolutely
background for the meetings at various times with that. And we will celebrate. And mostly, I wished I could give you a big hug for how much you're appreciated.
Thank you
for everything you've done, and words won't cover it, but we appreciate your leadership and your service.
Well, and we're headed in the right direction with you and Rick, and I never ever would have as many good words as the attorneys in the room.
Well, I was going to say, speaking of attorneys in the room, and since Lee bootstrapped off of my comments, I'm going to bootstrap off of his. But I mean, it truly has been a great learning experience being able to work with you. And so you have taught me a lot, not only about university, but about life. And, I applaud you for your countenance, for your approach, for your honesty, and for your example. And it truly has been a formative year in many, many ways, from even my approach. And so I commend you for the impact that you have had. And one thing that I think everybody should be aware of is just Debbie's commitment to students. We talk about being about students. She's always there, and she's always been in my ears saying, hey, what can I do for students? And there's been a number of events that we've had over at my house for students. And magically, she just shows up and appears there because she wants to support the students. And I mean, it truly has been a wonderful opportunity to serve with you, Debbie, and to be able to form the relationship that we have. And she truly does care. The amount of time that Debbie has invested in this institution is just off the charts. And I commend her for that. One of the things that, I think we often forget is, serving on the board of governors of the institution. It's not a compensated position. There's not a lot of glory in it. There's a lot of hard work. In fact, I think when everybody who's sitting around this table was appointed, you had no idea what you were getting yourself into. This year has been a banner year for that across the board. So Debbie, thank you. The time that she has invested, if I ever need to know anything, Debbie is so sharp and tuned in that, she can go back 6 years to the day and pull, the exact wording out of a document, and be able to educate me. So as I've come in, I'm truly indebted to you. So thank you for all that you have done in the capacity as chair of the board.
Thank you. It's been my honor. I'm very embarrassed now. Okay. So thank you very much. So I would need a motion to hold that a vote would be held to close the meeting pursuant to Missouri Statute 610.021, Sections 2, 3, and 14, to consider real estate, personnel, and other matters that are protected by law.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So we will move to a closed meeting.
Do you have Judge McCullough's address? Do I have his address?
Okay.
No,
Wait. Is that it?
Buchanan County Courthouse, I don't know, downtown. Good figure.
Are we live? Not yet? Oh, yes, we got the sign. I forgot about that. We're improving our systems daily.
Yep.
I was wondering.
We're on, man.
Okay, Debbie.
Are we ready?
We're live.
Yes.
All right. Well, welcome back, everybody. We just reconvened to open session, and so we have some personnel recommendations that the board needs to make motions on in open session. In the first, should we do them all together as one, or you want them individually? We have reemployment recommendations for faculty. Page 74 through 76.
All as one is fine.
All S1, okay. And then the faculty retirements and resignations and the professor emeritus status for Dr. Jennifer Hageman. And we also had, recommendations and approval for, tell me what it's called. Okay, wait a minute. For promotion for non-renewed faculty and faculty recommendations for promotion and tenure as per recommended from Provost Dr. Douglas Davenport. Did I get them all, Matt?
Yes.
Okay, so can I have a motion to approve those personnel recommendations as presented and recommended?
So moved.
Thank you, Lee. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. I guess that was Kayla. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Who wants the honors to make a motion to adjourn this very fine meeting? Or you could stay there all night.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, thank you. Was there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. All in favor of adjourning, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Motion passes. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very, very much. And thank you, Hannah, for joining us on your very